Hey guys, so the position you see in the thumbnail is actually from one of my rapid games on chess.com. So today, I'll be sharing it with you guys, doing some analysis, and just showing you how I got to that position. So the game begins with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop b4. So this is the Nimzo Indian. I've been playing this a lot recently because I think it's a very nice opening for especially players rated around the intermediate level or even the advanced level, because the plans are quite simple. You just want to essentially damage the pawn structure when you're prompted or when your opponent castles, and then take control of these light squares with something like b6 and bishop b7, and eventually when you sink the knight down on e4, it becomes very uncomfortable for white, as we'll see in a little bit. So my opponent develops, and we employ literally the exact strategy that I just mentioned, so both sides castle, and here I damage the pawn structure. So here I believe d5 is a way to play, and c5 as well in some lines, but my favorite way to continue is essentially just to play the move knight to e4 first, sink the knight into the center of the board, and then continue with d6, and then this move knight d7 and f5 here. So I've played a lot of Dutch defenses before, and so I can already give you guys a piece of advice. If you want to learn openings, try to learn openings that already have some overlap with things you played before. And so for the Dutch defense, it begins with d4 and f5 immediately. But you see how in the Nimzo Indian, a lot of the times with this setup, you can get to play this move f5 much later on, and it'll also strengthen your knight on e4. So this is quite good for black. And I believe, according to the engine, it's already a bit better here, just because black is more active play here over here on the king side. And so I decided to continue with the move, my opponent's move, and they decided to trade off my strong knight here. I continued with the move c5. And so my logic was that since my opponent's trying to start some counterplay on the queen side, maybe with rook b1 and a5, or maybe they want to play this move c5, what if I just play it myself? So now if they were to take, I kind of block everything over here, and then I still have exactly everything I want on this side of the board. And then as for on this side, I just block my opponent's bishop. They have doubled c-pawns, which can't move, and then this bishop is also stuck behind this pawn chain. And so this would have been quite bad for my opponent if they took. But instead, they decided to grab my knight. I took back with the bishop. And then here, they played this move, queen to d2. I was a little bit confused by this move, because it looks like the queen is just kind of stuck behind all their pawns. Maybe my opponent wants to play d5. In a lot of lines, you could actually get into some trouble. So let's just say I play this move a6 here. I actually had my bishop trapped in a tournament before. So not here, because I feel like you can just, maybe even here actually. So if you were just to take, this move f3 pretty much traps your bishop. So yeah, they let's just say go d5. Let's say I push, f3 here would trap the bishop. And this is quite a funny way to lose it. It's just kind of in the center of the board. And so I was a little bit cautious of this. Here I wasn't too worried because I felt like I always had this move f4 and get out this way if I needed to. And so I just decided to play rook f6, get my rook over. And they decided to employ the strategy of f3. So to kick my bishop off of looking at the g2 square, there was two ways. You could have also played bishop f3, but this would open up the king. Not recommended. And so my opponent plays f3 here to block me off the diagonal. I just decided to go back. And now they play bishop d3. So here, this is why I was confused by the queen d2 move, because I feel like they should have kept the queen on c2, because this way they could have played e4 a little faster. But now they have to waste time trying to go back and start their counterplay again. And so I go rook h6. My idea is just to bring my queen over and start an attack, and then maybe this knight will join this other rook. And you can see how black already has a lot of potential on the king side. And so my opponent strikes with e4 here. And so I decided to just play this move queen to h4. So my opponent plays g3. And then here I go queen h5. And my strategy was essentially that, okay, I'm going to bring my queen over with tempo. The only way they guard is h3. That looks like a big weakness, right? Because you're weakening all the dark squares around the king. They could also play g3 to defend it with the queen. And either way, I'm going to drop the queen back to h5, where I also support the f5 pawn. So this is kind of activating my queen while also defending the pawn indirectly. And so I go to h5. And now my opponent plays rook f2 just to overprotect the h2 pawn. And so here, I was a little worried because my attack, it seems like I do have something here on the king side, but my opponent has done a great job restricting this bishop. And it's not so clear if I have enough time to bring pieces over. It looks like my opponent is defending themselves. Maybe they'll go like rook g2 and just like gotta put everything on the pawn. You know, it's just it's gonna be pretty difficult to start an attack. And so I decided to go rook f8, just trying to bring another rook over to the action. Maybe rook f6, and then rook over like this. And then my opponent doubles rooks on the f file, also bringing some more action to the king side. And then here I play queen h3. This is just kind of like a bluff move. I wasn't really sure what to do, and so sometimes when you're I learned this the hard way after losing many games on time, is that if you're not too sure what to do, it's usually best to just like make one of like these types of moves that like get into your opponent's position, add some more pressure, and doesn't really change much. So it can't be a mistake, and it's just a safe way to play. And so here I did see that my opponent had this move g4 and trying to break everything open here. So first of all, I had rook to g6, and I felt like this was maybe a little dangerous for them as I do pin the pawn. I did see e takes f5 here, and then after this, I had this kind of pin tactic. My opponent is unable to take back because of the pin, and I felt like this was good for me. And so that's why I decided to simply just play queen h3 after evaluating all of my opponent's counterplays. So g4 I realized wasn't too scary, and obviously my opponent couldn't take the rook, so there wasn't much they could do. And so here they decided to go queen c2, and this was when I employed the strategy of locking the center. So first I played this move f4. So f4 essentially, well, tries to break open the g file. And so, believe it or not, it's actually best for my opponent to take and then try to counterattack. This was according to the engine. But my opponent plays the much more, I would say, practical, obvious, human approach of just pushing the pawn, just locking the position. But this is actually good for me because after I play e5, essentially my opponent, like, they're unable to transfer pieces over to the side of the board as easily with the center closed as opposed to if the center was open. So usually when you want to attack your opponent on like one of the flanks, so either on the king side or on the queen side, like this, you would benefit from the center being locked because that way your opponent can't easily transfer their pieces over. And so I played rook to g6, just simply preparing the h5 move, and also maybe trying to just like get off the h file. There isn't much going on there. And so my opponent decides to play the rook to b1, and now they're trying to start some counterplay on the queen side. And so here I was getting pretty low on time, and at this point the attack wasn't very obvious to me because I did see that I could bring my knight over to f6 and maybe try to sacrifice, but again it wasn't like too clear, like my opponent's blocking. In that case I would actually have this move off here. I'll just show the line. Let's just say my opponent has a5. I could actually sack here on g4, and after they take I go check, and then I would trade rooks, and then I could take the bishop here. I didn't see this in the game, and I just felt like this was a little rushed, and I could have just like prepared my attack a bit more. And so I just decided to, I didn't know what to do, so I just decided to play the rook to g5. I also wanted to get out of the way of, this pawn getting to g5 if my other rook ever arrives at h6. So it's just kind of another, waiting move. And so my opponent goes bishop to f1, kicking the queen out. I go back, and then they play rook to g2, so kind of just guarding their pawns. And then here I play rook to f6, trying to swing my rook over. Even here, I feel like h5 would have been a little faster and better according to the engine. But at this point, I'm just playing safe moves. So I play rook to f6, and I'm just trying to be patient. My opponent plays a5, and now I double the rooks onto this file. They know that I'm trying to come in on the second rank, and so they're just protecting everything on this rank as much as possible. So here I play bishop to c8, and my idea is after knight to f6, I literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if I play h5, 6 different, pieces slash pawns pointing to this pawn right here, and it just looks like, I'm probably breaking through at that point. And so here, essentially, I was able to do this because I evaluated that my opponent's counterplay on the queen side wasn't particularly dangerous, and so I had the time to make sure that, this attack worked to its fullest. And so I wanted to play h5 when I was completely 100% sure that the attack was going to break through. So here they played queen to d1. I thought I was also a bit confused by this move. Maybe they wanted to go queen to e1, but at that point, why didn't they just go queen to f2? I wasn't too sure. And then here I felt like it would have actually been a little difficult for me because I think my opponent can actually just straight up trap my rook, which is pretty funny. So queen to f2 would have definitely been a better option. My opponent goes queen to d1. Completely reasonable as well. I went knight to f6, and then here my opponent takes this pawn, I decided to take back, and then they get in with their queen. So here I was getting a little scared because I had 1 minute 28 seconds. I just played this, kind of, nice attacking game. I have everything pointed to this pawn, and then my opponent is like on the verge of literally infiltrating over here. And so here I just decided to play this move, bishop to d7, to attack the queen. Apparently I could have just played h5. I didn't play h5 even here because I didn't like queen to a8. Apparently this was still good for me. It's like -5 according to the engine. I essentially just sacked the bishop, and I'm just breaking in over here. And this is just, it's like check me in a few moves. And so I'll just give an example. If white just, I don't know, attacks my knight, I could just take the h2 pawn. And then after this trade, I would have mate many different ways. I think one of the ways is probably just, let's see here. I think maybe just this discovered attack. I mean, this is probably also mate very soon, like this, and then checkmate. And so, yeah, that could have been a way to win. I just decided to be as safe as I can, so I put the bishop on d7 here. And then after queen to a8 and queen to b7, I realized that all my pieces work harmoniously to not only attack my opponent, but this knight is also like defending the bishop. And here I just noticed that there was like absolutely no way my opponent could break in. They were like many moves away. They had to like play rook b6, rook a6, rook a7, and then even at that point, the knight's doing a great job defending. And then here they're not, sacrificing. This bishop is blocked. And so this is why I decided to go for this, but I also have 57 seconds, so it's important for me to play simple moves. And then finally I play h5. So this is the position you guys see in the thumbnail. I have literally everything pointed to this pawn. And usually I lose games because I'm not very patient. I really like attacking games, especially when I get to kind of sacrifice material. But this was one of those games when I played patiently, and it definitely paid off because this h5 move, it doesn't really have any risk anymore. Like, clearly if my opponent takes, they just get obliterated on this file. After this, there's already the queens coming in, and this is checkmate, right? And so pretty much, yeah, I was like, the game is pretty much over here. But the problem is I have 57 seconds, so I still have to convert the attack. I play h5, my opponent just makes kind of a waiting move. I trade, they take, and I just basically crash in. They trade, they didn't really have anything better because if they didn't take me, I'll take them, and we would get essentially the same position. They block, and then here I just decided to, just trade everything off. Like, my knight's coming in, my bishop's coming in. This has to be good for me. I cannot draw arrows. This has to be good for me. And so my opponent takes. I go queen e1. And then this is just checkmate in a few moves. I believe I had checkmated my opponent. Yes, like this. And then after they, bishop d2. I went back, and then this is a checkmate. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I personally enjoyed playing this game a lot. It was a lot of fun. And when I got here, my heart was literally just it was pounding. It was like, do. You have to win. Look at this attack. And yeah, glad I was able to convert this one in the end. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And if you're a chess player trying to reach 1500 elo, I would love to help. If you're interested in some personalized one-on-one chess coaching with me, feel free to check out my website. It's linked down in the video description. Take care, and I'll see you soon.